So this is my retaining wall from the top. It comes from the neighbor's creek, which is now dry. Anyway, his creek is completely dry. And this is the water puddle that it's got to be before the waterfall. That waterfall, when it starts going during spring, well, not sorry, during spring, but during fall and winter, it's going to send all the water away. That's for damn certain. Once the water starts going, all of these leaves, all this trash in the way, it will be wiped away. The dirt is cleared from little rocks like these. There's some still down there, of course, but the majority are gone. So when the water starts washing things away, just like this little puddle right here, it's gonna wash all the dirt and mud away and clear the way until clay is left at the bottom itself. Here is what it gets interesting. Here is where the water has started gathering in like a big dosage. Very big dosage, in fact, that the puddles are keep forming. Water started pouring, and it keeps going down, and it keeps going further and further. Oh, almost slipped there. And it goes all the way over there. And when you go up here, there's the second retaining wall that has been made. The second retaining wall is built on top of roots that go underneath that you can't see unless you're going to the other side. The water is going to gather here. This place is currently not plugged, and when it plugs up, the water is going to go over the wall. That's how powerful the water force is going to be. I'm recording this for notes for the future, so I know what the fuck is going on and how the fuck it keeps going. The water rotation continues down here. This here was dug out during the summer and springtime in order to have more water going and retaining. During the spring and summertime, the water itself did not retain, like it did not remain. It got into the soil that used to be down here, about this height, and you could see none of the water. Now you can see the entire waterfall going from over there. A different angle of the same place shows the next retaining wall that hasn't been constructed entirely. Down here, this hole is dug down until the clay. This stick will be a showcase of how deep it goes until it reaches the clay, which is not that much considering. You keep going further and you will eventually reach the waterfall section that is not so powerful until later. You can only see little few dribbles at the bottom going through the best it is able to. Right here is the tree, this tree, and it has roots going into the dirt. Into the creek itself. These natural roots are used in order to make rock walls, such as this rock wall right over there. This is built on roots, as you can see right here. These branches were used to be built just before the new rock wall that will go up in order to create a retaining wall for dirt. That way we have no issues. Over there is natural clay wall. This is clay. Please note that you cannot destroy clay, which will be in my next segment. The clay goes along the entire creek, and you cannot destroy clay. If you're using a jackhammer, it's possible, but if you're using a shovel and a hammer pick like I am, a shovel and a hammer pick, you cannot. Crusts and pieces of clay does not mean you're upsetting the creek or the clay itself. It doesn't mean that. If you want to look back to ancient history and study the times of ancient Egypt, you will know what I meant. Right there is the next retaining wall that will go higher, and the water will go over it. This retaining wall right here gathers water, just like every other retaining wall, in order to send a huge force of water down the creek and down the next waterfall, then the next waterfall, and then the next waterfall. The completed segments of Arius Creek go down to the main creek, aka the Heartland, where the waterfall will go through here, and then we'll reach this wall right here. The water goes over the wall and then keeps on going and then over the next wall. This is the Heartlands, or the River Heart, as I like to call it, of Arius Creek. Case in point, the entire point of River Heart and why you do this to a creek, why do you give it a straight platform, why do you give it steps to go down? During winter time, the water level is going to reach above or past the second step right there. That's one. Second reason is the more steps you can go down and the more platforms you can go on, the better you can clean your creek with this beautiful baby. The more you make things such as walls like these, retaining walls, you contain water in order to keep your creek moist. If you're dependent on well water before the government shuts you down or builds cement over your watery creek, just remember one thing: the government does not care about your creek. They implement these laws for you to not to put cement inside your creek, or that is inside walls beside your creek, but they do it themselves when it comes for profit or money. That's the federal government of Canada for you. But the point being is, no cement was used. All right? No, none whatsoever. Sand, mud, clay, anything natural resources that you're allowed to use, you are allowed to use. The rest is, every retaining wall retains water, but also when winter hits, the water gathers in and sends a waterfall. That inside there is all clay. That inside here is all clay, and the rocks are tossed on top of the clay in order to keep the water rushing, in order for all that leaves and stuff that you can potentially reach naturally will move on your own. These are stone steps and decorations. Those little stones and those little pieces of wood will be covered up by rocks to give it that exact feeling right there. So if you're ever into this predicament, there you go. Over here will be a large retaining wall, just in case if the water from this waterfall would rise. This retaining wall has already been built up so the water doesn't crush this wall and therefore crush everything else. And this is the look of River Heart from the other side. Right down here is this section of the creek is called the lower reaches. The lower reaches continues from River Heart. As you can see, the water goes through there. Underneath here is all clay. As you can see, there's a little bit of a clay spot right there. And all the rocks are stacked down here because, well, they have to be, as I've already mentioned before. And the water keeps continuing. There's a wooden temporary wall, like I mentioned. There's a fern. It is advisable that you put as many plants as you can in order to create the retaining walls to make them stronger. Over here is a stepping stone, aka a step where you can go step on, blah, blah, blah. It leads you across this section where you can step through, and potentially, eventually down here, there's going to be another wall that's going to go from up here to here with the steps connecting in order for you to reach the lower platform and continue down the lower reaches. Right here is the section where another waterfall loop is going to go, and it's going to go down. So the River Heart has a wall there in order to retain and make that a separate floor. Over here there's another wall to create another floor. This creek all around, everything that is right here is flat. And the creek is right there in the middle. That's River Heart. The waterfall, first waterfall loop is there, the second one is there, and the water keeps going. The stick you see is our way of pumping water out of the creek in order to water plants. The hose goes through there, goes up there, and then the rest is used for the garden. There are stone steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stone steps. All of this wall is made out of natural rock. It's made with sand. It's made with clay that was crusts of clay that was dug out from the creek, and very, very thick mud. So these steps are not advised to be made by anyone else, only if you know what you're doing. The River Heart of the creek goes all the way underneath here, and it goes further. This summer and this spring, I dug this out as well in order for the water to retain and not dry out in the soil that's useless in the creek, but rather be utilized for better things and purposes. The waterfall continues from up there, from way up there, all the way down here, and it goes from that hole right there all the way down here, and the water keeps going through another waterfall, and then it keeps on going and going and going. Over here is a natural wall, aka a platform where you will step on. It is not completed though, unlike the platforms you saw up there at Riverheart and that one up there. Just going to showcase this a little bit more and give you a different angle of the entire creek. The creek continues down here. From Riverheart, it continues to extend. Right there, there's a platform that are supposed to be steps. And over there is another platform that is not yet completed. Down there is a waterfall section of the creek. Right here, water rushes through. Over there, the wall hasn't been done. And temporary wood has been put there in order for the water to not go down there like it did last year. And yeah, this is the neighbor's creek. He's a fine chap, good man, who allowed me to work in this creek because he loved the work I was doing. This puddle right here is the result of my cleaning of the creek. And also because all the water gathered in there, but it dried out quickly because, well, as you can see, the entire pipe from inside has these wet spots. That's all because of the water that was rushing through. The retaining wall there is made to retain as much water and to keep the soil moist and wet. The second retaining wall that I will not be able to see in action until winter is this retaining wall. I don't know when exactly I will see this wall in action, but when I do, there's going to be a huge waterfall that's going to clean his creek. This is another little tiny waterfall, but it's not really a waterfall, more like a retaining wall. Down there, there's all those rocks that are holding this platform up from moving. All those rocks right there. The rest is the bridge section and the largest area of the creek that's completed, which is on a small level at the moment, unlike the other levels. Water is really high here. However, there was a hole dug up there, so all the water gathered now, instead of being retained by dirt and blocked by dirt. The first waterfall is going to be there. There's barely any water there, but there is some moving through the cracks, but you can't really see it, but you can somewhat make it out when you look closer. Like underneath our big massive rock right there, there's water right there. There's a second puddle right here. This one's become quite bigger, but you see there's water like crazy rushing down, but the water is disappearing. The water still has to gather behind this retaining wall in order to start gathering down here and spread. And that's going to take a while. This is the creek from the upper level, a different section with a huge puddle of water, very deep. If I jumped in there, I would sink about to my knees. If I jumped in here, I would sink about until past my ankles. And that's another waterfall, of course. This is a massive dugout section with only one wall being done. There's no supporting walls, there will be one over there, one over here. Where those roots are, you can't really dig that out, so there's going to be a huge rock wall here. Temporary wood was placed so we can hold back any dirt and leaves that are trying to fall inside of the creek.
before the storm hits, it would be recommended that you clean the leaves from the creek. This was all filled with leaves, and so whatever you see right now are little remains that are being carried by the upper sector of the creek. If I stand on this platform right here, the next waterfall, which I can't stand on because that's how strong my walls are, that's the next section of the creek. And this is also very deep, that it can reach up to your ankles. If you go further deeper over there, you can reach, same thing, up to your ankles, a bit further up to your knees, depending on where you're stepping at. But it's not as deep as the other one because this top sector wasn't worked on as much as the other ones were. This is where the water is not gathering. There's no retaining walls up here. This is still development. It's still under development, so this will be the slowest area I will ever be getting to. Up there is where that path is cleared between the leaves, is where your rainwater is going. This used to be up to here with dirt. So this line here, so this and this here used to be all one big mound. I dug it out so the rainwater can go and give the creek more flow. And finally, the last waterfall that was made, which is at the crossing and at the center, well, not the center point, but the line of my neighbor's property, which is, this is his creek, this is his property, and that's a terrible creek. Honestly, that's fucking terrible. But point being is, this is the line of mine and his property, and all the water that's coming from his creek is gathering here. And so it's gathering, and it's retaining water in order to keep this water here for the neighbor, and to keep this water so his well functions better, and to also keep our water going, as you can clearly see. This is Arius Creek, and so we're at the bottom right now, overlooking the bridge. And yeah, this video is recorded so we can know exactly how much the water level is going to rise, how many issues we're going to have with the water. And currently the water is on a small, well, medium level. There's actually a previous clip of where I walked up the creek and there was barely any water going through the rocks, but now puddles have gathered slowly, and little areas where the water is gathering just like crazy. Tomorrow we're having a massive storm, and according to this massive storm, it's going to be a lot of water, a lot of leaves blown, and so on and so forth. Over there's a platform, and down there is where the entire creek is flowing. So yeah. And that's the second waterfall, actually the third waterfall from up here. The first waterfall is being there, and the second one right there. So that's 3 in total so far. Going further down the creek, one will be able to see that the water keeps on going. And this is the most unfinished section of the entire creek, because there's no walls whatsoever, but there's a lot of tree roots, which makes this one of the easiest sections to be made. The more powerful the walls get powerful from above, aka the more you make these walls and water rushing for it, the more this creek gets cleared and cleaner and wider on its own without you having to do any digging. This stone was buried underneath so much dirt that you could not even see it. Right here, there was all dirt and there was a huge patch. While building the wall,
the water cleared and revealed this stone for me in order for me to be able to see it and know what the fuck is there, and you know why I couldn't get it out with a shovel before. The creek on its own will push natural stones for you and gather natural stones, preferably at the bottom of the creek, which is usually the location that they gather. Dry spots like these will remain because the water will keep on pushing dirt for you. And we have a pipe which was not constructed by us but by whoever made this house, and down this pipe is the last slope that goes down into the neighbor's creek. Arius Creek is not built with any cement, so no cement whatsoever was used in the making of this. You're not supposed to use cement. What you're able to use is rocks like these, sand, what else? Well, sand, not that park kind of a sand from when you go into children's parks and shit. That's not even what you're supposed to do. What you're supposed to use is use that tough gravel sort of rock. That's fine, but no cement is allowed. If you use cement, the government could get you and get your ass and be like, what the fuck? Because most of the creek lands and properties that are flowing through other people's properties are natural flows that should not be disturbed. You are therefore not allowed to damage clay, redirect the water anyway. Cement creates a big clutter of unable to let the water go through. For instance, that waterfall right there, if I plugged it in right now with cement, there's no way I would have had water going through there. And the water would be redirected and would go up there, which is something you don't want. You want the water to flow through freely. And also for all those people, I'm here to bring this something very stupid I saw on the internet. In one of the, I think it was Facebook blogs, I'm not really sure, it's not a blog, but you know what I'm saying, like a chat log. There were these people complaining about this guy who was digging out dirt from his creek, saying he will disturb the natural flow of the creek. Please, for all people who haven't educated themselves or put time into their creek, as I have, please know that you're unable to disturb the creek unless you hit and destroy the clay, unless you crack through the clay, not the crusts of the clay, which is like the skin of the clay, but the clay itself, the hardened part that shouldn't be going down. The only way you can destroy the creek at the bottom, which is at least, could be 5 feet deep, honestly, depending on the clay and where it's located, there's absolutely no way that you can destroy the creek's clay unless you take a jackhammer to it. And if you take a jackhammer to it, that's the only way, and I repeat, the only way you're able to damage clay and disturb the flow of the creek. Now, for people who haven't seen clay, underneath here, I believe, yep, there it is, there's our baby. This here is clay. It's hard, it's not dirt. You can't like move it away. It has these little rocks stuck in it sometimes. Well, not sometimes, most of the time. This entire bed right here, that wall over there, this wall here, it's all clay that's sticking out of the ground. That water is only at the bottom. That's because as the water flows throughout the years, it spreads everything. Like it cleans a path. It forces nature, aka the earth, to give it space in order for it to flow. So I repeat, you can't damage a piece of clay unless you take a jackhammer to it. And so people stop fucking complaining about a guy wanting to take a bucket of dirt from the creek because he might disturb the creek. He won't disturb the creek. And if you don't know what you're doing, please do not fucking complain. The internet is a place, yes, to complain and bitch and complain, but it doesn't mean you're right. So it's not Twitter. Real life is not Twitter. And but lately people have been saying it's been turning into Twitter. I guess. Jesus. Okay, I think I'm done now because I'm becoming too depressed just thinking about it. Yeah, back to work on this baby. Okay, or you can stand here if you want to. It looks beautiful. Capture somehow that beautiful feeling. Oh, beauty.